that in his criminal past he spent 2 years or several years in prison, and in the years 2011-2012, according to the prosecutor, he came into contact with radical Islamist elements and was himself radicalized. These are the elements that have convinced the prosecutor that there is a prima facie a terrorist angle to this, though of course this does not mean that he was being guided or directed by anyone else.
Hugh, for the moment, thank you very much. Professor Tahir Abbas researches radicalisation and violent extremism at the London School of Economics and the Royal United Services Institute. He joins us now from Woking in Surrey. Professor Abbas, thank you very much for joining us this evening. So the police are treating this in France. The prosecutor says this is a terror incident. What's your view of that approach?
Well, there is some history that has been exposed in relation to the background of this particular individual that might suggest that there are concerns, but we do not have any conclusive evidence yet. And so therefore it is important to remain careful given the heightened sensitivity around the question of Islamic extremism, etc.
The intelligence services say that they viewed him as a person at risk of moving into radical Islamism, but he wasn't on any Islamist watch list. To what extent have they missed a trick there?
Well, it's very difficult because many of these individuals have all sorts of checkered backgrounds in relation to criminality. And there are also other triggers such as mental health or psychological trauma that can tip people over, which aren't necessarily observable or easy to detect by security or intelligence services.
I mean, many countries are having to wrestle with this, aren't they, and come up with ways of trying to either prevent radicalisation or even develop de-radicalisation programmes. How well is France doing?
Well, France has had to learn a lot very quickly given the atrocities that have gone on over the last year and a half. The state of emergency has meant that security has been championed. But there are many developments in terms of trying to understand the pathways, the risks, the various trigger points that affect young men invariably in relation to these kinds of questions, which have definitely improved in the light of improved knowledge.
To what extent do those pathways into radicalisation vary between countries, even countries in Western Europe?
Precisely. I mean, I think this is part of the problem of trying to identify what exactly is going on here. There are so many different trigger points. And we can talk about pathways, but these pathways are certainly not linear. People can dip in and dip out. There are also external factors that might pressurize individuals. And there are, of course, internal community, cultural issues that push people away from spaces that might be seen as sources of comfort even.
How important then will the issue of radicalisation be in the investigation which the French authorities are now involved in?
I think it's important to keep an open mind and to look at all aspects of this case as in a detailed way as possible, because there is, as mentioned, a great deal of sensitivity around Muslim extremists in the current climate. And what this does is generate heightened sensitivity in all spheres of society, which mobilize further forms of radicalization and extremism as a response.
We understand that the attacker, the cousin, the father and the brother of the attacker are now being questioned by police. How important will they be in trying to shed some light on what's happened to this man?
Yes, I think this individual, he texted just before or just after something he'd done, attacked the police officer earlier in the day, shot her with a pellet gun. So the family members, if they can provide more detail around the background of this individual, what kind of groups he associated with or otherwise, and to give a much more of an ecological background on the life of the individual, would help the security services and the police services going forward.
Professor Tahir Abbas from the London School of Economics and the Royal United Services Institute, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're watching BBC News. It's a little after 7:15. Our headlines this evening. Nicola Sturgeon